Welcome to the Rust Belt Rundown, brought to you by Rust Belt Recruiting. This podcast is designed to shine a light on the meaningful work being done in Northeast Ohio and the surrounding region. We will convene manufacturing executives and Northeast Ohio business leaders for candid discussions about their business, regional happenings, industry trends, entrepreneurship, and more. Now, let's get running on the rundown.
Okay, welcome everyone to episode 11 of the Rust Belt Rundown. I am your host, Paul O'Connor, and on this episode, we are joined by Jay Foran, Senior Vice President of TeamNEO. Jay, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really looking forward to today and the episode.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you.
Yeah, for sure. So, before we jump into TeamNEO, we really like to give our guests an opportunity to talk about their career journey and how they got to where they are today. So give us the 30,000-foot view of how you ended up at TeamNEO.
Sure. So I'm a Cleveland born and bred. Went to Miami University, and during the course
sorry about the loss last night. Big game.
Oh, yeah, that was a heartbreaker, but we've got a good team this year, and we're excited for the prospects for making the playoffs, which would be a big feat for Cleveland.
Yes.
So anyway, went on to Miami University, and there I was recruited to join Procter & Gamble, and through my employment there, I moved around the country. I spent time in Michigan, Connecticut, Chicago, and almost 20 years in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, man.
So over the course of a 25-year career. But my wife and I, as we started having children, decided that we wanted to be a little closer to home and allow our children to know their aunts and uncles, cousins, and family. And so we made the decision proactively to move back to Cleveland, which we did in 2000. And for 6 years, I spent time as a retail consultant, helping companies mostly around technology and applying that technology to their business operations. During the course of those 6 years, though, returning to the same town that I grew up in, Lakewood, Ohio, I became very involved in the community, and through that involvement, ended up leading a redesign exercise and ultimately a number of bond issues related to new schools in the city of Lakewood. So it was a pretty massive 4 or 5 year project that I was involved in, and gave me a great feel for community engagement. Also during that time, with a couple of other folks, I started a community development corporation called Lakewood Alive. And it's all about promoting the city of Lakewood, helping people at the community level get engaged. It's still thriving, having been in place now for well over 15 years. So feel good about that. And once I was involved in the community, I said, I want to get involved more. And so that led me to make a career change from the consulting work that I was in to pursuing an opportunity with TeamNEO, where I joined them in 2007.
Got it. Okay. So let's back up to all the places that you lived. What was your favorite place to live? If Cleveland isn't number one, which I assume it is.
There were a lot of great places. So, living in Connecticut, it's terrific because you have access to New York City. From where you lived. Living in Chicago, you can never find anything wrong about Chicago, right? Again, great downtown options, great options to Wisconsin and things like that. But having spent the most time in the Bay Area and having developed a great number of friends there, really love that area. The variety, the diversity of opportunities from travel, Yosemite, Monterey, Mendocino, Lake Tahoe, city of San Francisco, all of those were just wonderful experiences, and we look back very fondly at having spent time there.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Bay Area later and what's happening there. So I know you'll have an interesting perspective. But you spent 25 years at Procter & Gamble. How was it to work for a company of that size? And talk a little bit, too, about the benefits of the corporate training that a company of that size has.
Yeah. Well, it was a great experience, a wonderful experience. And, the corporate training is second to none. There's lots of opportunity that I was afforded. Developed my career, eventually became, an associate director there, which is fairly high level within Procter and Gamble. And, I ended up leading the Safeway team, which was a major food grocer on the West Coast, multiple cities. And I guess what I have taken away from that experience at Procter and Gamble that I apply to my current work at TeamNEO is that I came to understand that for companies, private companies, public companies, there's three things that they think about and when they look at any opportunity. First, am I going to make money? And that's an okay thing, right? Making revenue is okay, and it has to be okay. But they also look at how much time is required, how much capacity of either themselves as individuals or their organization. And then lastly, what's the risk associated with that opportunity? Is it one that you're going to be competing with a lot of other parties for, or is it something that you might have a unique advantage in, or are there downsides that are, that could potentially harm your business and make it more risky? So I think it was really learning that those three elements are paramount as you assess any opportunity. Yep. So I apply that every day now to what I do at TeamNEO.
Yeah, I was going to say those three things are pretty perfect for a seamless transition into what you're now doing at TeamNEO.
Right. So at TeamNEO, we our mission is to help companies grow, and also to draw new business investment into the region. New jobs, et cetera. So we're working with the companies inside the footprint of Northeast Ohio, which are 18 counties, basically going from the Pennsylvania border west to, I always say, Erie County or Cedar Point, and then south to Mansfield, the Richland County area, and back over to the Pennsylvania border. So that's a population of 4 million people, as I said, 18 counties, 2 million plus people in the workforce. Lots of companies, but again, when we work with those companies or we're talking to prospects coming into the region, it's the same three things. Am I going to be able to make money there? How much time is it going to be required for me to do that? How much effort is required? How much capacity will be drawn upon to make that prize possible? And then what's the risk associated with doing it?
Yep.
Talent risks, or there, other kinds of risks that they have to take account of.
So, I mean, it's a perfect transition. You touched on what the mission of TeamNEO is. You joined in 2007. What are some of the organizations that have since, brought their HQ or their operations to Northeast Ohio since 2007?
There's a lot. There's probably about 8-10 a year that we are able to draw. Companies don't tend to relocate as much as they tend to expand into other geographies. So, some of the significant ones that we've been involved in include Nestle. I mean, Nestle was here. They had a division here, but the food division, but ultimately they added other divisions that were consolidated into Northeast Ohio. So Nestle has operations in a lot of different businesses, and then those had been spread out across the country. So we were competing with some of their other current locations to be able to identify Northeast Ohio as a great place for their pizza division, a great place for their technology team, and all of the people associated with that from a corporate standpoint, their logistics team, et cetera. We also, one that might not be on the map with everyone is Alexander Mann, which is a human resource capital development team They actually were based in England and had a strong market share in Europe. They were looking for a North American beachhead and were, settling on Charlotte, North Carolina. But because of an advocating person here in the region who knew somebody in that company, they got him on the phone and they said, "Hey, before you leave the continental United States and fly back to Europe, you need to come to Cleveland." And they contacted us. Once we got together with that company, we made the business case back to time, money, and risk on why Northeast Ohio and Cleveland was a better location. So they've been here about 10, 12 years now and doing well.
So expand on the site selection process, because in my next life, I want to be one of these consultants that fly around and pit cities against each other and get to say, hey, well, look, Columbus said this, so Cleveland, what do you got? That seems like a dream job. But explain that process a little bit further when companies and organizations are looking to either move HQ or just expand.
Yeah. So a site consultant is an extension of what you consider people that are in the real estate business.
Got it.
But where their job extends beyond the real estate brokers and folks that you might be more familiar with, a site consultant is a specialist about location. And they have a strong data analytic approach to where a company ought to locate. So their role is to serve as the project manager for a company that retains them to help them address what the requirements are from the company. So the first thing they do is they sit down with the company and say, okay, what's really important to you? Mm-hmm. Give me the 20 things that really count. Now let's prioritize those 20. Now let's weight those 20 such that if you get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that may be enough for you to say that's the right place.
Got it.
But what are the GameStop, what will stop you wanting to go even though it meets 19 of the 20?
Yeah.
And then they work to assemble all of the data and to validate that data. And then they also apply a qualitative lens to the effort. So there's lots of data and you can make a decision off of a spreadsheet, but at the same time, you want to go and visit the market. You want to look at the site. Again, you want to look at it from their lens, which is, is there money to be made here by going with this location versus another location or another location? How's time and capacity going to be affected?
Yeah.
And then lastly, what's the risk? If they're in the petrochemical business or something like that, they can't deal with hurricanes and thunderstorms or fires or things that are prevalent in a particular geography.
Yeah.
So those are things that they have to take account for. They assemble the information. Ultimately, though, the company makes the decision.
Got it.
And all they're doing is kind of laying it out. And of course, they help negotiate incentives.
Got it. Okay. I want to get into, right after this next question, certainly what it would take for Northeast Ohio to land a major HQ move, similar to Oracle moving to Austin. But even before that, what is, as of late, Elon Musk has talked about it. What's happening in the San Francisco area from your perspective and in your opinion, where it seems to be, for the first time in my lifetime, a little bit of movement away from that being the technological hub as we all know it?
There still is a lot of technology.
Yeah.
There. And, I'm not sure that it's going to dissipate overnight or anything like that. With that said, I think every company, again, looks at the functions of their organization and say, they would always like to have everything together.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, right? You could, walk from the headquarters over to the production plant or over to the distribution center and, get a great feel for things. However, either because of regulations that a city, state, or county apply, sometimes that makes business somewhat restrictive. And unfortunately, what's happening in California is that there are so many different regulations that are being applied to business that many companies are looking for, is it required that function be next door?
Got it.
We can still serve as maybe the headquarters. Maybe we can still serve as the technology center, the new product development idea. But when it comes to making the product, I can do it in Ohio at half the cost and without the regulations and maybe the tax environment. And maybe it's logistically closer to my customers. And so what you're seeing going on in California is organizations optimizing their operations such that, do we need to have our call center, which typically is, doesn't matter really where you have it. And do you want to pay a premium for the people that are in the call center because you're in California versus North Dakota or Mississippi or somewhere like that? So those are the things that are going through companies' minds. And that's true no matter where a company is.
Yeah.
So we always think about companies coming here, but Sherwin-Williams, they went through a location decision on their headquarters. There's a tendency to believe it was automatic. They were going to stay in Cleveland. Well, it wasn't automatic. They looked at a number of other locations. And we at TeamNEO, working with our partners, Jobs Ohio and others, the city of Cleveland, the county of Cuyahoga, et cetera, we had to put that business case together. We had to compete for that business. And so that happens on every expansion inside the region and every attraction coming into the region.
So what would it take for Northeast Ohio or Cleveland to win one of these massive companies similar to Oracle, putting weather and geography aside? What's the playbook to win one of these massive companies?
It comes down to talent, and it has for the last 10 years. With the, I would say the, declining population, at least in the workforce, because of, the baby boomers retiring, et cetera. The uptick in the amount of technology and data and other capabilities, requiring upskilled employees that are, STEM trained and all that. You've got to have a talent base that can deliver upon what would it take for a large company to come into town. Okay, let's assume that today 95% of people that are employable are employed. So if you came in with 25,000 jobs, you might have a lot of people leaving these other companies to jump into that company, but at the same time, you don't have enough total employment to take care of what's here today, as well as, and that was the challenge with Amazon when they were looking nationally, right? Everybody's like, we're going to win this. Great. What happens to everything else? What happens to the payroll in the marketplace overnight? Because somebody comes into the market and, it's, disruptive to the employment. So it's building that base of talent that's predictable and sustainable. So these back to the site consultants, they're not just looking at the talent today. They're looking at the talent that's coming out 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. They're looking at the curriculum of the universities and how it aligns to the job skills that they're looking to fill. That's why we put out the Aligning Opportunities Report every year, which measures the talent supply that's coming out of the 25 plus universities that we have in our region versus the real demand. What are people looking for? It's great if we're, graduating a lot of English majors, but if companies are looking for, technicians, there's a
Yeah.
mismatch there. And so we try to help inform the market about this talent gap and so we need to put in programs, and that there's a lot of efforts afoot to make that happen.
Yeah, perfect transition. Obviously, Cleveland's home to a ton of colleges and universities, and one of the better urban planning programs in the country is at Cleveland State.
Right.
I've talked with other guests about what they call the brain drain in the past 20, 25 years, where tons of students go to college in Ohio, but then they leave for other places. So I think you did hit the nail on the head. But how do you see Cleveland and Northeast Ohio enticing recent grads to stay in the area instead of going to a San Fran, a New York, a Chicago, and then maybe coming back later?
Well, it's always about jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so back to risk, right? So when someone is developed a skill and they want to go to a market, they look not just at the company that may be enticing them to come to that market. They're also looking at similar like companies that might be in that same location. Why? Because risk. They want to say, if it doesn't work out with Procter and Gamble in Cincinnati, I can go to Kroger or Federated department stores, because they're all sort of in the same industry, but they're in the same market.
Yeah.
So from a career development standpoint, you want to have those opportunities to develop your career.
Got it.
So talent is paramount. And we've got to find ways to make sure that the people graduating from the universities in Northeast Ohio know about what's available here and get them before, their head gets full of, I want to live in a warm location, and that's it. There's so much going on right now. And I think the future is definitely getting brighter. And then if you look at COVID and the impacts of that on how people are thinking about their careers and where they do their work, more people are now considering, I'd rather be near family. I can work remote.
Yep.
There's Silicon Valley jobs that are available, and you can operate out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
So, and you have a lower cost of living and, all of that. So
I think if there's one benefit, and I'm not sure there is, but if there's one benefit from what we've been experiencing with COVID over the past 8 months or so, it's we have fast forwarded into the future a little bit where, maybe by 2030, companies would be more open to working remote. But right now, they have to be, right? So we've been plunged into the future. And to your point, right? Like my wife, she works for a company in New York. They gave everybody the option to work wherever they would want until at least the summer of 21. And even then, I don't know if they're going to make people come back. If it works now, it'll continue to work. That doesn't mean you won't have to fly back to New York once a month or whatever, but
right.
People are open.
This is good for Northeast Ohio.
Yes.
This is good.
Absolutely.
And I'm not. I agree with you. I'm not sure they can put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to then say, hey, you got to move back here. Like that's not going to go over well. So I want to ask you about the Blockland initiative and how you guys worked together with that. And is there any potential to attract other technology companies from the West Coast as Austin, Texas did?
Yeah, so definitely yes. And I'll get back to that last question. But relative to Blockland, where we helped, and again, you try to figure out where you can add value. And there were a good number of smaller fintech type companies that attended the Blockland conference.
Got it.
So wearing our attraction hat, what we did is we came to understand who those organizations were that were signed up. We then, as they came into town, we greeted them, met them. We even hosted 10 dinners around the city of Cleveland,
Very cool.
whereby we brought city leaders, not government leaders, but business leaders, to join them for dinner. So if we had, a dinner for 16 people, 8 of them were entrepreneurs and owners of young and smaller companies, and 8 of them were then business executives from companies who are the best people to make the pitch for why do you want to be in Northeast Ohio? Why does the Blockland Initiative align with what you're trying to achieve, and access and all of those things. Relative to that question on are there technology companies that we can attract to the region? And the answer is definitely yes. We're seeing that already. You've seen the announcement recently, of which TeamNEO was part of, as well as Jobs Ohio and others, around helping Lordstown Motors, right? That's about electric motors in trucks. And there's a whole electrification movement underway in terms of airplanes, trucks, vehicles, et cetera. Yep. And we are becoming a pronounced region around the topic of energy storage, because the magic sauce of electrification is, can you put a battery together that allows someone to travel 400 miles versus today where maybe they can only go 150 miles, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all about, again, the capacity of the energy storage. So that's a whole thing going on. The mobility movement in terms of the various forms of transportation, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, data analytics. And so we're seeing a number of good, small and mid-sized companies that are choosing Northeast Ohio because of the access to the universities and technology-based companies like Progressive. I mean, Progressive is not an insurance company; it's a tech company.
Yep.
Highland is a tech company, right? So, there's a lot of their suppliers and organizations that are, like that come to this area. So back to your one question a little earlier that I'd like to add on to is, can we attract a big corporation? The best way to attract a big corporation is to attract a good number of small, strategic, well-targeted companies that ultimately will grow in your marketplace. Yep. The big kahuna is the one you read about once a year in, New York Times. But it's, the companies that have grown up in Seattle all started small. Starbucks was on the corner, right? And then eventually, right? So that's the best way. And so this whole entrepreneurial movement, the movement to draw in small and mid-sized companies that are looking to scale, that's the best path forward, at least from a, best prospect standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect transition too, because putting specific industry aside, what is the general pitch to companies, right? Like, what are the main benefits of moving either a company HQ or just an expansion effort to Northeast Ohio? Like, if there was 3 to 5 bullet points that you say to every company, regardless of what industry they're in, what are those?
So I always start with access, right? Access to markets. We are strategically located between Chicago and New York, and Toronto and Atlanta. And, probably a third, if not more, of the US population exists in that area. Mm-hmm. And so, companies that we're interested in are those that extend beyond the boundaries of Northeast Ohio in terms of doing their business. Those are the companies that can go out and win market share across the globe. And as they gain market share, then they grow here, right? So access to markets is paramount. But then it's also access to talent. And, again, we have a strength in this area. There's, maybe, people think about our 25 universities that we have in the footprint. But when I talk to a company, I'm talking within 200 miles, because you go and recruit at the University of Michigan. You recruit engineers from Purdue and Carnegie Mellon.
Yep.
So Ohio State doesn't belong to Columbus. They don't own it.
Yeah.
It's a state institution.
Hey, good luck telling
Companies here. That's right. So access to talent, cost of operations, right? Another bullet point. Huge, right? The differential between doing business in California, New York, and Ohio,
astronomical.
It's big difference. But here's what I always add into the story, which is not only do you have to pay people less here, the people that you care about, that you employ, will enjoy a higher quality of life, even at a lower income, than if you paid them more and they lived in California.
Yep.
So that's a company, again, wants to make money, but at the same time, they want to take care of their people. And they want high retention, low turnover.
Yep.
And, that's the risk thing again. And so people here can, again, enjoy a good quality of life that they're just not going to move across the street for 10 cents.
Yep, of course. What industries, if there's one specific or a few, what industries do you see or foresee arriving in the Northeast Ohio area in the next 10 to 20 years? Is there a specific industry or lane that you think may expand more than others?
Well, if energy prices ever come back, I would say the manufacturing segment, which is, the heart of our industry, our economy, and it can expand, especially based on the access to low priced oil and gas, as electricity and water, right? So we have all those utilities. We also have broadband, which is in many ways a utility as well.
Yeah.
We have, deep and dark fiber that comes through Northeast Ohio. And so we have a lot of the infrastructure back to access to markets and utilities and things like that. So I see that oil and gas that we're fortunate that, is deposited in the eastern part of our region and southeastern part of our state. So that whole petrochemical industry. Of course, I would put on, headquarters again. We are a headquarter-rich region. We are disproportionately large in terms of the number of headquarter operations here versus other cities. And because of that, we have a lot of the services that wrap around those companies. There's a reason that EY is here. There's a reason that Jones Day, one of the most prestigious law firms, was founded here. Because again, we had this large number of headquarter operations.
Got it. Okay. Well, listen, we'll get you out of here on an easy one. And you can think of it a couple different ways, but we always like to allow our guests to spread some love to other Cleveland restaurants, entrepreneurs. So you can answer one or both, but one is, what's your favorite Cleveland restaurant? And then since March, what has been your favorite or your go-to takeout option?
For restaurants, I have to be loyal and recognize my nephew, who's an entrepreneur and is part of the team that does Market Garden,
Okay.
Nano Brew, and Barcento restaurants on the 25th Street. So there's an option there that, it doesn't matter what day of the week, we can find something unique and different along those three menus. And so we travel over there pretty frequently.
Nice. Keep it in the family. I love it. Okay. Well, Jay, listen, the last thing too is, where can everybody, if you're interested in learning more about TeamNEO, where can everybody find you? Website, social, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So it's teamneo.org is the website. We also have a smart manufacturing cluster and additive manufacturing cluster.
Okay.
So I think that would be something that people might be interested in. It's an emerging aspect of manufacturing. So that would be smartmanufacturingcluster.org.
Got it. Awesome. Well, Jay, this was fantastic. I think this is going to be one of our better episodes. So thank you so much for coming on. And
well, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, we'll be in touch in the near future. And listen, I'll be rooting. I'm not a Browns guy, but I'll be rooting for you because you guys deserve it. So hopefully they make the playoffs and Baker, continues to improve. He's been playing better.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And, have a great day.
Yes, you too. See you, Jay.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Rust Belt Rundown. Make sure you check us out at rustbeltrecruiting.com. The Rust Belt Rundown is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click on 5 stars if you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.